Hello to everybody. My name is Britta Waschel. I'm the Managing Director of E5, the European Business Council for Sustainable Energy and Materials. And I will be your moderator of this exciting side event on the COP28 in Dubai this evening. This side event is called Leveraging Carbon Dioxide Removal, Negative Emissions and Renewable Energy Solutions. Achieving the 1.5 target will require the use of negative emission technologies and materials, as well as direct air capture and sequestrating materials, especially for the CO2-intensive building sector. Following the IPCC scenarios, there's no scenario without CDR carbon dioxide removal when we want to reach 1.5. But not only technology, but also intelligent assessment and finance is needed to implement solutions. The overarching questions are now, what is feasible, what is available, what is scalable, and what of all this is desirable or really sustainable? And what has to be done to be faster in this needed just transition? This evening we have some outstanding speakers here to give us some insights in their work. Global business executives and experts in CDR and NET material development for future-built infrastructure, building industries, their conformity assessment and finance, electrification, as well as voices from the global grassroots climate justice organizations that will underline the necessity of CDR and NET solutions. First, I welcome on the panel Kolja Kuse, President of E5 and member of the CDR Research Consortia DECUS, that will present it later. Second, Mustafa Abu Nufal of Guidehouse, Ryan Kolker from International Code Council, Pinaki Dasgupta from Asokam, India, Feti Kirda of Fifth Wall, and in the second round, because we only have 4 seats for speakers here, Miguel Waschel for Peer Technologies, Mr. Raghunath from KES Group, Yin Yun Jim, Coalition for Our Common Future, and Kenneth Amoateng of Abi Binam Foundation. A warm welcome to our speakers. First, Kolja Kuse, President of E5 and host of this event, will welcome us in the name of E5. Kolja, please come.
Good evening, distinguished delegates. We are very happy to host this side event here at COP28. We have been doing side events for the last 10 years, but this is the first side event that runs under the umbrella of E5, and we are very happy to be here and inform you about what we think a very, very important topic in the climate change discussions, which is the topic of CDR. We need, as the IPCC tells us, carbon dioxide removal. Without carbon dioxide removal, it is too late to reach the targets with mitigation only. And we want to show you in this presentation and side event a little bit about the thoughts that we have been doing in Germany, especially in Germany with a funded project from the German Ministry for Research and Education. It is called CDR Terra, and it is all about the different methods and methodologies and ideas that have been discussed for years, brought together in one large project. More than 100 scientists are involved, about 50 research institutes and organizations in Germany are working on this, and therefore we have a keynote speech of the manager of this program, and E5 has been working in one of these projects. It's about a total of 10 projects. Professor Julia Ponkratz is leading the whole CDR Terra project, and our project is called DACUS, which I'm going to present to you in more detail what we are doing here. So, video start, please.
So thank you very much for the chance to present to you our German carbon dioxide removal program, CDR Terra. And I'd like to give you a short overview of what this research program funded by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research does, speaking here on behalf of more than 100 team members of this CDR program. So first, you know the current situation that all scenarios that are compatible with staying below 1.5 degree includes some carbon dioxide removal. And there's multiple roles of carbon dioxide removal. All of them are complementary to deep, rapid emissions reductions. You see the famous figure here from the IPCC's assessment report. You see that before we reach net zero, we already have carbon dioxide removal like we do now to compensate for emissions. At the time of net zero CO2 or greenhouse gas emissions, you need to compensate for the residual, the hard to abate emissions, although we still have to define what hard to abate really is. And then later on, in particular in cases of overshoot, we will need net negative emissions, which of course then entirely have to come from carbon dioxide removal. So the aims that we have in this CDR Terra program, and you see it covers a lot of partners all across Germany, is to evaluate the potentials and impacts of the various carbon dioxide removal methods that are proposed. I'm speaking about those in a second, in a comprehensive common assessment framework. And this assessment should account for conflicts over resources such as water or land. It takes societal processes into account, as well as ecological sustainability and economical and political feasibility. So it's not about abstract hypothetical potentials, but it's really about what we implement on the ground when we take all these constraints into consideration. We perform a synthesis that unites the research results of all terrestrial carbon dioxide methods, but also marine ones, linking to our partner funding line, CDR Mare. And with this, we aim to lay the scientific foundation for the development of carbon dioxide removal pathways in Germany, but also be a blueprint for other countries, and also assess a lot on larger European and global scales. And this, of course, hopefully is helpful for political decision-making. On this slide, you see which methods we speak about. It's the most discussed ones. And you see that we've got methods in the ocean, like ocean alkalinity enhancement, artificial upwelling, or blue carbon, so mangroves, salt marshes, and seagrass, but also storage of CO2 underneath the ocean, but also under land. And on land, the situation is even more complex. We've got a full big suite of different methods there. And in fact, also one needs to see that the majority of all the carbon dioxide removal currently comes on land, although those, of course, in the future will change in view of that we need a broad portfolio, most likely, to be able to distribute risks and to limit the side effects to a manageable amount. So what do we have concretely on land? Well, afforestation, reforestation is something you know very well. Currently, 99% of all the carbon dioxide removal that we do is in the forests. Forestry also plays a role there. We've got bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. We've got biochar from pyrolysis of biomass that can be then put out on the fields. You can also put out rock grounded rock material on the field via enhanced weathering, would draw down CO2. You can re-wet and restore natural drained peatlands, so stop emissions, but also then take up CO2 over time. We've got agroforestry systems, you may know, and we've got quite novel, more technological and partly novel methods like the direct air, carbon capture and storage, DACs, or artificial photosynthesis. And last but not least, also, while you are here in this session, we've got carbon negative building material. So Kolja Kuse, Britta Waschel, they're here to explain you all about this. It's the idea is that with algae oil, for example, via photosynthesis, you draw down the CO2 from the atmosphere and then make material out of that is very durable over time. And this then fulfills the criteria you need for CDR. Take it out of the atmosphere, store it in a very durable material like carbon fiber, and do this additionally to natural processes, which would be a given in this case. And so we have a lot of different consortia that tackle these individual methods. We also have a range of consortia that look into overarching governance, economic issues, societal processes behind that. And then DACOS would be one of our consortia dealing specifically with these carbon negative house walls, and results look very promising in that, for example, this carbon fiber based material seems to be at least equally durable or strong as material based on the common fossils, as we know. So with that, I thank you very much that I was allowed to make a short introduction.
We didn't hear her last words, but I think the video was almost finished. So, so we are going to catch this up now. Julia was mentioning carbon fibers, and before I'm going to present this part of the CDR Terra project, which is called DACOS, which stands for Direct Carbon Air Capture, Utilization and Safe Storage. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background how we came into this project, what was the basis for that. And I'm going to show you a little bit now on this first prior presentation to the DACOS presentation about the work, what we did before. To make it short and quick and easy, we had the idea to produce carbon fibers from CO2. And this was analyzed in another German-funded project, which was called Green Carbon. And in Green Carbon, we analyzed the possibilities to utilize algae oil, which is microalgae, to derive carbon fibers from that. This was also funded by the German Ministry of Education and Research, and we had some prominent industrial partners in that project, which was Airbus and SDL Carbon, one of the biggest carbon manufacturers in Europe. And with Airbus, we talked in the beginning, and they were very eager to learn more about this idea because they are really interested to utilize green carbon fibers in their future airplane building. So what we did is we have proven that it is possible to make green carbon fibers at the same quality than those of fossil oil. So, you know, carbon fibers it has been utilized already in car manufacturing. Airbus is utilizing carbon fibers for parts of their Airbus planes, and Boeing has been building the Dreamliner out of 80% carbon fibers. So it is a viable material in the industry, and the challenge is now to bring these carbon fibers into the construction sector. How it is being done, we grow algae in tanks. There is, on the Airbus campus in Ottobrunn near Munich, there is a algae farm, a glass house, where they are able, together with the Technical University of Munich, to simulate any climate conditions for the algae growth. With LED lighting, they can simulate the exact sun treatment to grow the algae, and they can analyze in each region of the world how the algae would grow. And from the algae, we derive algae oil, and from the algae oil, we can produce polyacrylnitrile fibers, and these fibers will then be go through a pyrolysis process, and out outcome is carbon fiber that will be woven into fabrics, and then the fabrics we put together with stone. I can show you this here. Combined with granite after the carbonization and pyrolysis process to make the carbon fibers. Algae tanks could look like this in the future. This is an animation. This is not yet existing, but this is a vision to grow algae in desert areas, in semi-arid areas. And together with the granite that can be found in abundance on a stone planet like the Earth, we make new building materials. Granite has a very interesting characteristics because it is as light as aluminum. The gravity is between 2.6 and 2.9 gram per cubic centimeters. And also the elasticity of granite is quite interesting for a new product like this because it's quite low, and so that means that the granite in itself is flexible as long as it is kept under pressure strength by the carbon fiber. The pressure resistance of granite is about 4 times higher than that of concrete, and 4 times higher is also the tensile strength in comparison to concrete. From that we can make these materials that you hold in your hands here, which are 2 times lighter than steel, at the same performance. We can even make it more performant in utilizing a little bit more of the carbon fiber, which weight is almost neglectable in the whole structure. And now we come to the DACOS project. The idea was to develop a house wall within the framework of CDR Terra, and this house wall should consist of 2 slabs of stone, stabilized and reinforced with carbon fibers, and in the middle we have been using initially a piece of foam, but the idea is to make this even more carbon negative, to bring biochar into the foam or into cementous insulation material in the middle, and at the end of the day the outcome was that we use pure biochar. The Green Carbon project was also based on 2 scientific papers that we published before this project, and 2 of them were peer-reviewed and went into the SR 1.5 special report of the IPCC, and that was the reason for the German government to fund this project with about 7 million euros. And the next project, the DACOS project, follows now. I just have to switch the computer 1 second, please.
Thank you, Kolya. And now we present Mustafa Abunofal of Guidehouse. He will give us an overview of clean cooling strategies, especially on the Cool Up initiative. The floor is yours, Mustafa.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Britta. So I'm going to talk about an interesting topic today. If it's not already affecting our lives, it will be affecting our lives in the next few years, depending on where we're living, due to climate change. And that is cooling. Now, cooling in general, or let's talk about first about the buildings as a whole. Buildings are responsible for roughly 40% of the global electricity consumption. And this, in turn, is already generating a huge amount of CO2 equivalent emissions. Now, this does not really just apply to the MENA region, but it also affects the globally. Now, if we look generally on the total emissions of cooling in 2017, there were around 3.5 terawatt CO2 equivalent, so billion terawatt CO2 equivalent, which is a huge number. So this necessitates that there should be definitely approaches on how to kind of reduce the overall CO2 emissions. Can you have the slides, please? Yes. Yeah, so I wanted to give you basically an example on Egypt on how the CO2 emissions are kind of increasing as a result of cooling, but let's just start talking about it until the slides come up. So the overall electricity demand resulting from cooling in Egypt at 2020 is going to, well, it is expected to increase by a factor of 7 by 2050. That's a huge number if nothing is really applied to it at the moment. So what's the solution for that? What we're trying to do here, we introduce something called the Cool Up program. Now, the Cool Up program is a program supported by the German Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action. The program is targeting the 4 countries in the MENA region and Turkey: Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, and Turkey. Now, the program in general aims to upscale sustainable cooling in these regions. This is done directly by the introduction of natural refrigerants instead of utilizing hydrofluorocarbons or what is referred to as the conventional refrigerants. So what we're aiming really to do is to leapfrog these refrigerants and kind of focus on a more sustainable way to reduce the emissions. Now, just to give you a rough number of how much the direct emissions resulting from the refrigerants accounts, it can reach up to 50%, even sometimes 60%. So if we take for example, Egypt, they have a high share of R22 within their cooling sector. That we know that for a fact that it has a very high GWP, 2000 plus. So this is really resulting in huge emissions just purely from refrigerant leakage during to normal operation. So by introducing natural refrigerants and specifically propane, we can cut this almost completely because the global warming potential of propane itself is just 3, which is virtually 0 or almost. So yeah, within the Cool Up program, we're focusing on many aspects. From the policy side, capacity building, technology aspects. So we're not just providing policies and just helping people to raise awareness, but we're also implementing demonstration projects. So if currently we are in talks of implementing 3 different projects on the cooling side, but also on the commercial refrigeration. So we're trying to prove that the technology is there, it works, and huge savings potential is there. Just to conclude, the MENA region is expected, well, the consumption at least, or the demand from cooling is expected to triple within the next 10 years. So definitely inaction is not an option. Sustainable cooling is the way to go. Thank you.
So this was a really impressive project you told us on. Our next speaker is Ryan Colker from the International Code Council, and he will tell us something about intelligent assessment they are working on. Ryan, please come.
Thank you, and good evening. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'm Ryan Colker, Vice President of Innovation at the International Code Council. ICC is a safety, resilience, and sustainability solutions provider for the buildings industry. And we really do that through codes, standards, verification tools, and many other things that really help to make sure that the new products, new solutions, the built environment is safe, sustainable, and resilient. If we talk about sort of achieving impact and progress in both climate adaptation and mitigation goals, we really need the tools for verification. They're important and necessary to drive progress, to drive market entry for new and innovative materials, and avoid greenwashing. So codes and standards must really be set up to enable innovation, but at the same time, we must assure that what comes out of the process is actually delivering what we need. When we talk about the built environment, there are certainly multiple different performance attributes that we care about, certainly environmental attributes, but also things like structural safety, durability, and other tools. And so we see product evaluation, environmental product declarations as really a key evidence for verifying that materials are actually delivering what we need them to deliver. And so we've really taken a whole life cycle approach through looking at the entire life cycle of a building beyond just what we've looked at in the past relative to operational energy, but looking at embodied carbon, embodied greenhouse gas emissions in materials. And so working with ASHRAE, we're in the process of developing Standard 240 to really help provide a mechanism for the built environment to really understand the impacts of different materials across their life cycle. So as we talk about sort of innovative materials, new technologies, sort of a recommendation to embed the regulatory and market considerations for those new materials and new technologies from the very beginning, not as an afterthought. And so considering sort of product evaluation, codes, standards, and environmental product declarations from the very beginning is essential. One final piece is really to enable a building regulatory system that effectively delivers results. We really need a robust system that looks across the entire life cycle with capacity building, education and training, testing, and all of those solutions as part of the process. And so we've been certainly pleased to participate and support the Buildings Breakthrough, and particularly an initiative to support building capacity for safe, sustainable, and resilient buildings. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Our next speaker is Pinaki Dasgupta from ASSOCHAM, the Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industries of India. And now I hand over to Mr. Pinaki Dasgupta.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you, Bretta, and namaste from India. Very privileged to be here. I'm not going to take too many minutes. I'm just here to say that, buildings are very important. Built infrastructure are important when we are talking about climate change. ASSOCHAM is one of the oldest industry chamber of commerce and industry, and I come from a Green Building Council. We have a program called GEM, Green Building Certification Program, which is exactly an integration of my previous speaker's submissions of having partners at different stages to enable the builders, the promoters, and other people who are stakeholders to have an integral design of buildings which are more carbon neutral through the use of materials, through the use of carbon footprinting, through a life cycle approach, and through the use of a little bit common sense. So we call it GEM. GEM is Green and Eco-Friendly Movement. And what we are here in COP28 is to foster collaboration, partnership with all like-minded people to come together and really scale up the Green Building Certification Program. I'm not just vocal about our program, but we have IGBC. But what our program does is to base the Green Building Certification on ECBC, which is the Energy Conservation Building Code of India, and the National Building Code. So thank you so much. I will end here, and thank you so much for your presence.
So we have already a network and partners found. Wonderful. Our next speaker is Mr. Fethi Kirda from Fifth Wall. Fifth Wall is investing in new technology. So tell us something about your work.
Thank you very much, and good evening. And thank you to E5 and the organizers of this session. My name is Fathi Kurdar. I head the Middle East and North Africa region for Fifth Wall. Fifth Wall is a US venture capital firm. We are the largest investor in built world technology, focusing on improving, future-proofing, and decarbonizing the real estate industry. We are quite unique in that we have a number of the real estate industry players as partners with us. So we have over 100 real estate owners, operators, and developers that are investors with us, with which we work very closely to kind of identify the needs of the industry and address those through investing in solutions, tech solutions. So we look at climate tech as one of our key strategies to decarbonize the real estate industry. We look at it through the lens of a life cycle of a building. We know that basically that in the real estate industry or the built world accounts for 40% of all CO2 emissions, roughly 35% of all energy uses, and about 50% of all materials. Yet when we looked at how much venture capital funding into climate tech is addressing this 40% problem, it was less than 5%, which is a huge gap, and which means there's a huge need for new tech solutions to help decarbonize, to address this 40% problem. So we look at it, so out of this 40% in terms of CO2 emissions, we know that about 11% is embodied carbon, so essentially things like materials on the construction side as well. And 29% is on the operating of buildings. So the way we invest, as I said, is through the life cycle of a building. We look at everything from materials. So, for example, investing in companies, we invested in a company that is negative carbon cement called Brimstone. We invest on the construction side, looking at solutions like modular construction. We invest on the operating of a building site. So how do we operate a building to kind of lower the carbon footprint, whether it's looking at solutions for energy, so solar, batteries, EV charging, and building management systems. And then also we look at the end of life of the building. How do you get rid of a building in a more sustainable way? How do you recycle materials, recycling solar, recycling batteries? So, and we have been doing this for a while now. As I said, we're the largest in this, and happy to kind of take more questions, during the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fethi. So we now have a little bit here, a second round on the panel. And I welcome Miguel Waschel. He is here for peer technology, because not only decarbonizing of building materials is key, but also there are materials like copper. They can be a bottleneck when we want to scale up offshore windcraft or EV. So maybe Miguel can tell us something. What should we do, and what are the alternatives? So please, Miguel.
Good evening. I will try to explain around the groundbreaking of new engineering paradigms for the design of scalable electric mobility and energy production systems. The contents of speaking around the reducing usage of the fossil resources to zero, green energy scenarios, copper primary demand for renewable energy systems. Second paradigm is the reduced copper conducting material by 100%. Aluminium can be perfect, replace the copper. The third paradigm, reduce copper conducting materials by 80%. Leather steps engines devices can help create completely new world and electric. Reducing the usage of fossil resources to zero by 2060. We, in best case, will reduce up to 2050, and the worst case hope with 2060. Now we're going to take a look of the for the demand of the renewable energy systems. It started for the best case. We're starting at the demand of the supreme best case, the yellow curve. And the latest case, the lila case, will be with delayed, and the horn we have there in this case is the will be brought by countries with a lag in the adaptation of this electric energy systems change. Now then, how it works, the replace of the copper by aluminium without penalty means an economic point of view and the technical point of view. As example of a 360 kilowatt generator or motor based on the pure aluminum windings. The windings are in a in a leather step engine's stress efficiency. It means the leathers are combined by primary coil, secondary coil, and third seat. At the same time, this leather is in principle a line code for the possibility of control the engine, and this control of engine can be given the criteria for example, artificial intelligence, doing up to the shortcut circuit about the intensity of the machine, so we can control immediately on a critical point that the engine is going to work. So we can control up to the limit of the shortcut. In this case are the ladder steps engine about vectoring flux density. The ladder steps absolute angular sensor because the angle will be rotating, and with this rotation we can identify exactly where the machine is, where the rotor is in the machine. The 3G engine, this is a model calculated by a supercomputer in Stuttgart in the university. This is one of the biggest computers in Germany. And with this calculation is also done to the animation of vector flux density, motor and rotor motion. It's at this moment not working, but doesn't matter. We have the a scalar transient flux density. This are the details, and at the last end we have here an example. Right? Oh, sorry. The dosing pump driver blood it's already done. Also in the practice, it is working 100% with aluminium PCB flex material instead the copper. Traditional copper we have. So we are going down with the weight also of the machine without penalty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miguel. And our next speaker is Mr. Rangunath from KIS Group. His company is a big player of bio-based energy in the Asiatic Rim. And I think, yes, you can manage the slides. Thank you and welcome on the floor.
Good evening, and thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak here. As one of the speakers earlier mentioned, that bioenergy and carbon capture and storage is one of the key criteria for climate change. No net zero is possible without capturing methane. So what we have done in last 18 years is that we have captured the maximum methane in Asian continents, and we are capturing even more. These are the waste which actually emits methane, and when you actually emits methane, so when you don't capture the methane, it has 24 times more damaging pollution compared to CO2. So earlier we only talked about biomethane from this waste, but now actually we have got 6 products. One is biomethane for energy, second one is bio-CO2, which can be captured, used as liquid CO2, or it can be captured and stored also, liquid fertilizer and solid fertilizer, and sulfur recovery and plus carbon credits. And these fertilizers can replace chemical fertilizers damaging the earth. The soil conservation is going to happen only with use of organic fertilizers. And coming back to the decarbonization of industries, and when you capture this methane, we are decarbonizing so many sectors. We decarbonize the sector which is emitting methane, and we decarbonize the sectors which are consuming fossil fuel. So it's a complete example of circular economy. You can achieve circular economy with this one project, and it is the highest beneficial RE project, renewable energy project in the world. It has got maximum benefits. As you can see here, the one project is replacing 48,000 tons of CO2. We are replacing fossil fuel in Renewable. Another project similarly in Indonesia, we are replacing 59,000 tons of CO2 with just one project. Only these 2 projects are replacing 100,000 tons per year of carbon from the atmosphere. And this project, another example in Indonesia, a complete circular economy. The methane which was supposed to be emitted in palm oil industry, we are capturing it, and we are transferring that by captured methane to a nearby industry, and we're replacing the diesel used there. So you have a methane capturing benefit, you replace diesel, and you also get carbon credits and organic manure. The fundamental benefits of capturing methane is this. And in India, we have done some pioneering projects. It is the first project in the world which has got granule type manure. Even the farmers need a product which looks good and feel good. So this organic manure is a granule type. This is the first project in the world which is producing organic granule type of fertilizer. And the second project below is Asia's first, biocene dispenser. And the dairy industry was selling earlier milk and curds and yogurt. They are now selling biomethane and dispensing to the public. And this has become a role model for the world now. And to conclude that, we did Asia's first clean fuel rally in India using the biomethane produced from the waste organic manure. This is organized with the help of Suzuki. As you can see here, a lot of benefits are getting from the project. You replace fossil fuel in the transport sector. Suzuki has stopped manufacturing diesel cars. So we replace that with the biomethane produced from the waste, and we also get organic manure here. And all these cars are running on captured biomethane. And this has a phenomenal benefits to the environment and also for the methane capturing, and so many benefits from this project.
सुजुकी ने जो साथ में मिलकर टाइप किया है उससे फार्मरों को भी बहुत ज़्यादा लाभ होगा और उसके साथ साथ हमारे एनवायरनमेंट और सोइल दोनों को बहुत ही ज़्यादा लाभदायक होगा.
And thank you so much.
Thank you. And our last speaker for today is Mrs. Yin Yoon Jin from the Coalition for Our Common Future, a youth initiative of South Korea. And she will tell us something about the newly ETS system of South Korea, I think. So please come on to the floor.
Hi, this is Ji Yoon Kim. I am wearing two hats. So I'm leading a Korean youth organization, which is GEYK, and also I'm working in a finance institution, so investing in a carbon project. So basically, the CDR is, I think it's inevitable. Still, there are a lot of criticisms and complaints that this is not really helping for the reducing the carbon emission, but I think it's needed. And one of the big barrier for Korea is we have a ETS system, so it's similar with the EU, and then surprisingly, this is the third largest carbon market in the world, and the price itself is under $10 right now. It's been like 1 or 2 years. It was less than $10. So even it's lower than Chinese ETS market credit. So I had a lot of chance to meet the private companies to like investing on a carbon project, but for them is instead of investing in a carbon project, it's easier for them to just buying the credit from the ETS market because it's less than $10. It's not easy to persuade the high-level people in the company. So I think that's actually making a barrier for not only the South Korean company, but it's also to the abroad, because Korea NDC is include the offset project in abroad. So I think the government is giving inconsistency and wrong signal to the private companies. So I heard from the Korean companies, they said they are actually hiding the technology which can reduce the carbon emission because they know that price itself is very low, and then they cannot trust the government because they keep changing their policy. So I think that's what we have to solve now. Thank you.
So our last speaker, Mr. Amuateng from Abibimam Foundation, is not coming. So we now start with Q&A, and I think we get some help from the UNFCCC team, which are passing the microphones to you. So do you have any questions? And to whom on the panel? And please say shortly where you are and where you come from.
I'm Judy Zakreski with the International Code Council, and I have a question for the gentleman from the VC company. I wonder how you are working on market adoption for the new technologies. Do you have the products evaluated, and are they easily accepted?
Just pass another mic. Yes.
So basically, we invest in tech companies, right? New companies that provide solutions in terms of helping decarbonize industry through different stages. And we look at companies that have some, not necessarily commercialization stage, but very close to it. So they've got maybe some certification. There's proof of concept. There's some. We know there's a need from the industry because we partner with the industry as well. So we know that. So we work with them, but we don't necessarily do. I mean, we do our own due diligence. We bring in others, etc. But we look at the industry across and identify companies that are already effectively close to commercialization or about to. That's our strategy. Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up? Is part of the funding then used to obtain a listing or a certification to allow for market entry, or does that sort of come later in the process?
It really depends company by company on a case-by-case basis. I mean, essentially what we're doing is we're investing in a company that is, we believe that the solution is right the solution. There's a good team, there's a good solution, it's addressing a need. At some point it'll be commercialized, it'll be used by the industry. And so we're trying to help it and support that company as it gets to that point. And as part of that, if it needs to get the certification, yes, it gets the certification. And that can be part of the funding, it could be, but that's just one piece of the whole kind of what we look at as a company.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes. So Daniel Scholz, I'm a carbon market expert, and actually we brought into the market many projects since 18 years in various sectors, often driven by certifications or some payments from the private, but also from the compliance markets. I wonder, especially for innovative solutions in which may not easily obtain such certifications through a math panel under CDM or a VCM math panel, and how they can find financing and where are the barriers they see actually with you to this, because as incumbents are strong in the market, I think it's probably quite tough to bring new innovative, disruptive technologies into the market. So how do you see it? There are various maybe angles to look at, and maybe various voices with different opinions on the panel, so I'm happy to learn about this. If anyone wants to take this one.
I can certainly start. I mean, we're not in sort of the financial space, but we have sort of the tools to help enable the finance sector to really sort of understand what they're getting, and really being able to have sort of standards in place that really drives the acceptance and the ability to invest in particular innovative materials. And so particularly in the buildings product space where there isn't maybe a existing standard, we have mechanisms called acceptance criteria to identify what are sort of the tests and the other sort of calculations and methodologies that need to be undertaken so that there is sort of that acceptance, whether that's by the financial institutions, regulatory officials, sort of all of those pieces. So I would say, certainly having a, sort of good regulatory system with standards and tools to really bring those innovative materials to market can at least provide some degree of certainty, to investors and financial institutions.
Hi, I'm Yves. I'm based in Switzerland. We also invest in renewable solutions. One gentleman is sitting on the stage, so we are partnered in Europe as well. So I'm actually also a question to you, Fertie. So, I mean, I've followed Fifth Wall for a while. I know you're going through the digitalization wave. Now you're, well, let's say jumping on the climate wave, right? So are you, I'm curious if you're using similar like metrics for your LPs and returns, or is there in a way a different approach? It's not always a kind of maximizing returns or more patient returns, or I'm curious about kind of the frameworks there.
Yeah, thank you. So you're right. I mean, we started off as really just focusing on PropTech, right? To really, because we saw that, the real estate industry, particularly in the US, is, it's the largest industry in the US. The largest contributor to GDP, but it was always the slowest to adopt technology. And I think this is the same in other parts. And we started doing that. And then, as I said, because we have a lot of partners in terms of the real estate groups, they started coming to us and say, hey, can you help us look at these types of solutions like, smart glass or steel or whatever, so carbon sequestered concrete. So we started looking at it, and that's when we started, we built a team and we started investing that. But essentially, we're not an impact investor, we're not an ESG. We are, driven by financial returns, and it has to be pretty much equal to the returns that we would get otherwise in software. Now, the difference in climate tech for real estate is it's very hardware, it's more hardware, right? It's heavy CapEx businesses, right? So it'll require more funding, it may take slightly longer, et cetera. But essentially, of course, we needed to make sure, our mandate is to invest in things that decarbonize the industry, but it has to make the returns for the investors as well, similar returns. And we believe that we can generate those returns with these, because the demand's going to be there, and then the solutions are coming out. There's innovative solutions coming out, yeah.
Just to follow up, so do you see a government kind of stepping in? And I mean, well, you cover this region, but well, you guys have Asia coverage, right, as well as, of course, US. I mean, if yes, and where's kind of the area or the geographies which are kind of leading the way? Like from government subsidies and early innovation?
Well, I mean, I think, most of the innovation is really coming out of the US, firstly, right? So there are some stuff in Europe, and other areas. But in the US in particular, yes, you do have a lot of government help now with the, Inflation Reduction Act, right? Which is effectively infrastructure bill to support climate tech businesses scale to that point whereby, they're able to, they'll help investors come in. So it's kind of de-risking that initial stage. So there is in US definitely there's these kind of grants or as you like, through the IRA. In Europe you also have, and I think they're probably more ahead. So in those areas we haven't seen anything obviously in the region yet, but I think you have. I mean, it was this $30 billion fund that was launched last week, which may not necessarily target the region. It's a global fund, but that will also help. And I think you're going to see more and more regions probably will come out with some incentive packages or grants, because this is a solution that is needed. Because, as I said, the real estate industry, the built world is, it's the largest contributor to climate change, right? And how can you get to your net zero targets without addressing this? And how do you address this without, kind of identifying these new solutions, new tech solutions? And to be able to do that, you also need, it's a kind of some public support initially in some of these heavy capex businesses. So while the US has started this, and Europe as well, I think you will probably over time see that in other parts of the world, that there will be some support in some form or another to kind of really help kind of ignite. Not to subsidize, not to like for long term, because that's not the goal, right? I mean, you have to have commercially viable businesses, because if you don't have a commercially viable business, then it's not going to last, which means you're not going to have that impact that you want it to have on climate change.
So we have a question online with a little help of the UNFCCC team.
So we have Rosemary Ann Harrison. She asked, are human rights impact assessments brought into the regulatory system for construction? And if so, how?
And to whom goes this question?
This Rosemary, and she didn't mention.
Okay. Who want to answer? Can you please...
Yes, for sure, I will repeat it. Are human rights impact assessments brought into the regulatory system for construction? And if so, how? Yes. Are human rights impact assessments brought into regulatory system for construction? And if so, how?
So I guess I can sort of take a first crack at that. I think, certainly not directly. I think if we think about sort of the broader impact of the built environment, there's certainly opportunities there. I think some of the things that we can think about, maybe not sort of, directly human rights impacts, but, sort of safety of the built environment and even the construction process is incorporated into, the construction, into the regulatory process in most places. So if we think about, the construction workforce who are, constructing the buildings, I think that's, certainly a key part of it. But I think it goes beyond just sort of the building regulatory landscape. I think you have to have sort of the social systems and mechanisms in place to really understand potential exploitation of workers and those sorts of things. So, I think it's important not to sort of think in bubbles around sort of just the building regulatory structure, but thinking sort of more broadly about where those intersections are and how to think more sort of holistically about the built environment.
I would just add, basically in India, we have a Building and Construction Worker Act, which necessarily defines how during the process of construction, the investor or the promoter are required to treat workers. And especially in terms of the legal parlance, we have a very strict regulatory framework in place in India on child labor and women who would be employed in a hazardous atmosphere. So in terms of regulatory presence in India, it is very strong. It is very clear that during the building construction, there has to be a certain level of safety. There has to be insurance. There has to be EHS in places. But in terms of reality, I think there needs to be much more to be done in terms of sensitizing. In fact, in our GEM Green Building Certification Rating Program, we have a principle which is dedicated to the human angle of construction. So we give 5 marks to promoters who can demonstrate their ability or their intention that they are treating workers, women and children during the whole construction life cycle fairly and equitably. So that is what I wanted to share. Yeah.
And maybe let me add one more thought that sort of came to mind. If we think about sort of the role of the building regulatory system, particularly the adoption of minimum mandatory building and energy efficiency codes, they really sort of set that expectation of, how every resident within a community, what their expectation is, relative to safe, affordable, and sustainable housing. And then, that certainly translates to, other buildings in the community. And so, if we think about things like energy burdens and sort of how much, people pay of their income in utility bills, like energy costs for, low and moderate income households in the U.S., the median is 6%, but we have some communities that are paying 30% of their income in utility bills. And so having a robust building codes system in place can really help address some of that, and assuring that while those low and medium income households have sort of other stresses in their lives, utility bills and the safety of their housing should not be one of them.
I can add also like a Korean context on here about the buildings. The housing itself in Korea is very expensive, like other country, and marginalized people or youth and like people who is in a poor, more than half of population in Korea is living in Seoul area, and there's not much space in Seoul, of course. So if you guys watch the Parasite movie, the families are living underground. So that's kind of like a typical place for the people, not just like normal people, but like people who's in a poor situation. And the flood is getting severe every year and then frequent. So since like 2020, we had a long heavy rain every summer, and people who actually living in that underground, sometimes few people are keep dying or get injured. But the Seoul city haven't really realized that can be the problem. And then the mayor of the Seoul city, Mr. Oh, announced that I will just prohibit to live in the underground. But they don't have place to replace it. So I think even his willingness to raise the safety guide for the people, but we don't have another strategy or plan for moving them to a safe place. So I think just strong regulation have to back up with the financial or another support for the people.
This was a quite good comment. And Pinaki Das Gupta also have a comment, and you have the microphone, so please.
No, my submission and to the panel also and to the audience is basically, and coming from an Indian context and a global south context, is when we talk about building, built infrastructures, and we talk about people and investment, it is also important to realize that the investments which have been turning up, and great to see a lot of many startups in the green zone this year and COP. But I think the built infrastructure is very underrated and neglected in terms of the investments. And I love as much as I would recommend the global cooling, but global south also need affordable heating. You know, winters are harsh, especially in the Indian subcontinent northern part. And as you said, we have also a lot of homeless people in cities or laborers who camp, and they struggle a lot for 3 to 4 months to actually have a decent living. And of course the state governments, they do their own part in terms of providing shelters. We call it winter shelters, providing blankets. But even like a person like me, we don't have affordable, heating systems. That kind of leaves us to the mercy of nature, and we do away with a lot of layers of clothes, which are good because we look healthy. But then the real fact is the investment should actually, the global investment should look into considering affordable materials and affordable heating. Because in India, even like security guards, we have a lot of security guards outside our homes and offices, and they are at the mercy of winter, like in nature. So it is really interesting that we, of course, global cooling is necessary, but then I would propose that we also look into global heating systems and affordable global heating systems. That was my comment. Thank you.
So I think then public demand can help to help people with affordable and secure housing, and to help new technology to come in. This can be key, public demand.
Thank you. I think the public demand is there. It's actually the voices, sometimes we have indigenous people and the vulnerable community here speaking for themselves, and also vulnerable countries. But this is basically coming from the masses, and especially from the northern part of India or Pakistan or on Bangladesh or Afghanistan or Nepal. I think and some other countries, I'm sure. But the winters can be harsh, and that's why I am kind of putting emphasis on affordable heating solutions. I love affordable cooling solutions, but at the same time, I'm more vocal about, because even when we design buildings in India, I don't know about the building designs in this part, or we design it for summers, majority of summers. But then we forgot that there is a seasonal shift and the winters will come. And then the design sometimes fail. So it is very important that at COP, we also advocate and we bring the voices of those unheard people, of those vulnerable people, to say that, okay, this is great, we can at least have the heat, but cold, winters at 2 degrees centigrade is not made for the human beings. So we would require people, investors, to come up and say, yes, we are there for you. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Or do the speakers have another question over there?
Raghu sir, you talked about bio-CNG and potato waste specifically. why not food waste? I mean, totally. Do you segregate that, or like, what do you do?
Okay, can give me that. Okay, thank you. We can segregate the food waste at home. There are two ways of segregating it at source. If you look at developed countries like Germany and some other countries, they segregate at source basis, at homes, at restaurants. In developing countries like in Asian countries, I think it's not happening yet. But indoor they try to do. I think they are a bit successful a little bit. But even if it's not segregated, we can also segregate in the plant. So we have two types of waste we get. One is segregated food waste. One is a municipal solid waste. So we'll segregate the facility. So not a problem. But the best practice is to segregate at home. So it's the best practice. It's happening in Europe. It will happen slowly in Asian countries and also other countries. So thank you.
So maybe there's a question a speaker do have to another speaker. Or Yves, I think.
Yeah, just to the entrepreneurs which have solutions. I know, of course, Kolya has a great solution, it looks, but what are the challenges he experienced, right, to actually really get it out of the lab and bring it to mainstream? But I mean, other people can chip in as well if they're in a similar situation, right? So what is needed to get it at scale, right?
Do you want to answer, Kolya? Then you have to go to the microphone.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Okay, this works. Yeah, that is probably the most difficult question you could ask me. Yeah, I think everything about climate change is connected to the topic of materials. We have been discussing about energy production for many years, and when I came to the first COP in 2007, we had a few of these samples of this material already in our hands, and actually we didn't know at all what we should do with it. We went to the COP to find out, to discuss with people and get feedback what they think about it. And I remember one moment when a student from Saudi Arabia took a look at our material and said, this is really something that could be disruptive to challenge steel and cement and other materials. And suddenly he said, wouldn't it be possible to make the carbon fibers out of CO2? We never had this idea. We brought this idea back from the first COP, and that is why everybody asked me in the beginning, why do you go there? I said, I don't know, we will see. And we came back with this revolutionary idea. And that was the basis for the work we have been doing since. So, I mean, things develop by themselves sometimes, and it's maybe kind of nature that these thoughts are necessary to bring us forward. And I personally believe we have to think about materials. CO2 is a material, it's a gas. What can we do with it? We can grow algae with it, we can derive oils from that. Fossil oil is also, it's very old CO2. It has been CO2, it has been captured by nature and brought down deep into the earth, which created this fantastic climate we take in profit today. I think it's inevitable that these kind of materials will make their way into the market. What is needed? We have shown a lot of things. What can be done? Perhaps you can put the last presentation that we have prepared for questions up on the screen, and I can show you a little bit more about these materials. And it's so fascinating to think about materials. What Miguel has presented, for example. Suddenly someone has an idea, how can we replace this 1,000 windings of copper in an electric engine by a few windings of aluminum, which have the same performance than what we have previously done. And we need the aluminum for these kind of applications to avoid bottlenecks in electrification, because copper may become in certain times and certain amounts for this kind of large scalability of electricity a bottleneck. We need to find different solutions that can help us to overcome these bottlenecks quickly and fast. And I believe the stone, is it possible to bring the last presentation on the screen? It's up on the computer here. Doesn't work? Sad. Oh. Doesn't matter. What I wanted to show you is we have made some photos of a model of this house wall that I was talking about. It's made from stone and carbon fibers. It has a chamber in the back side of this plate. It's in the exhibition area in booth 38. The compartment contains this biochar that has very fantastic characteristics. It's very highly insulating because it has a lot of porosity. It's especially made for this kind of applications, and people are very astonished that suddenly someone came up with the idea to use a biochar as it is, not mix in some foam or some cementous material. Use it as it is. And no one had the idea when we made tests within the DACOS project framework and heated up a little model house wall of height of 50 centimeters in an oven up to 900 degrees C to see what happens to the biochar in the compartment. And we made bets before what happens to the biochar at that temperature, and no one really had the answer because no one has tested and done this before with so incredibly interesting materials, and nothing happened. Nothing happens. It's an absolute temperature stable insulation material. So we can solve problems here, technical problems, fire resistance problems, and so on. We found out that the stone is, we found stones in India which are temperature resistant up to 1,000 degrees C. They are degrading, but at 600, any concrete will crumble in the oven. That's what we tested as well, to have the comparison. So it's all about materials, and then comes the energy question. Which kind of energy do we need for which kind of materials? Yeah, that is, I think it's an extremely important and interesting field we are working in here. Now, how can we scale this up? We need money. That's the point. We need investors that start to like these kind of disruptive ideas and help them rapidly develop and show what they can do. With the carbon fiber stone, if we wouldn't have this problem with fire resistance, we could build the Burj Khalifa 2 times higher on the same area, because it's 2 times lighter. The material is 2 times lighter than what they have been using there. So we can do completely new things. I don't want to build this thing because this is not scalable application. We need housing for people. But this was just an example when people ask me, what can you do better? We can do better 2 times. And I think that's a figure that the investors should be interested in.
And Kolya, one question for me. What about the cost of this new material? So Pignacchi told us it has to be affordable.
Yeah, I have it here on the slides, but the slides are probably not. In DACOS we have preliminary results. A house wall made from carbon fiber stone with insulation material of biochar would end up at the same cost level than a comparable concrete wall with insulation materials from foam. This house wall would be to an extent of 50 kilograms per square meter carbon negative, while the footprint of a comparable house wall from steel reinforced concrete would be between, depending on the quality of the cement, between 100 and 150 kilograms positive footprint. So one solution is about 100 to 150 kilograms CO2 equivalents positive, and our house wall we are developing within the framework of DACOS and CDR Terra is 50 kilograms negative. And I think that's, if this would be 2 kilograms, everybody would say, okay, it's nice, it's negative, but it's not really negative. What we think is something that should be interesting to investors. But the figure 50 kilograms negative, and this has not been optimized, like what Peer Technologies is doing with the electrical engines from aluminum. They put this in the supercomputer and are able to optimize this extremely quickly to bring it to the best possible performance level. We will do this within the framework of DACOS in the next step as well. We will use supercomputing power to simulate all of this, but we need some more money to afford the computing power. But there's still reserve. We can do better than this. This is initial results, but I think that's motivating.
So I think the building sector can be key then, when we think about that all used material in the world. I think 70% or more is building material. And in another side event, I learned that about 60% of the whole buildings are not yet built, needed in 2050. So this is an astonishing number. Yeah. So to find new building materials and go away from this heavy CO2 emitting materials, this is a big point, I think.
For the cold regions, we have a brilliant idea that the carbon fibers that are built into this wall can be also heated up with electricity. It is conductive, it has a high resistance, electrical resistance, and if you put some voltage at two ends of a carbon fiber, it is heating up. So eventually, in the next step, we have ideas how to integrate cooling systems in the same way through materials. At the University of Chalmers in Sweden, someone is developing batteries from carbon fibers. They call them structural batteries. Imagine a house wall containing carbon fibers and maybe a little bit of lithium is capable to store electricity in the wall. I mean, there are so many possibilities that we can think with carbon fibers. Yeah, we are currently building heatings for the market, but that's not integrated in the wall. But we hang it on a wall. It's a black panel. The black stone emits radiation with the same frequency range. Is very similar to sunlight, and it gives a really warm feeling. The people who stand close to the heating have the feeling they stand in the full sun. This is really a difference if you have a white panel or a black panel. So many people say they want a white panel, and we tell them they will be do not have very comfortable heating, because then you would need to heat it up to much higher temperatures before you get any feeling and sense. This heating is heated up to 65 degrees, and that's enough. If you look at the old ovens, they were all black. So we need to accept certain things in this whole scenario. It needs to be black if it should be efficient. All the kings and queens in the big chateaus in France, they wanted to have white ovens in their room, and they were wondering why they were freezing anyway.
So Kolja, I think that is advertisement for your profession, not only for your product. I think when we give to the engineers the right questions, they should find an answer. That's my impression now. I studied the wrong things. But to come to an end now slowly, I think we all now have a better idea, not what is the right way, but how complex the implementation of new sustainable solutions are, and that there's a long way before us to go. And there's not the only one silver bullet that can solve all problems. And I think the good news are that there are new approaches on the way. So I want to thank to all our speakers, and we give them a warm clapping. Thanks a lot. And thanks to the technical team of the UNFCCC and for their help. Thanks to you, to the audience, for coming and for the lively discussion. And we wish you all a successful COP, and we all hope for a strong outcome. So have a nice evening.